I am happy to have Automotive Seminars as a sponsor for the show. Now, if you're not familiar, Automotive Seminars is a diagnostic technician training company. They've got a website that there'll be a link to in the show notes. And what they offer is top-notch training to technicians like us in the field. I've been taking their training courses for years and have got a ton of benefit out of it. They've got top-notch instructors, John Thornton, Scott Shotton, Scott Manna, and every other month they've got a 2-night course that you can sign up for. Join in, ask questions, and afterwards, you've paid for the course, you can access a recorded version whenever you want. You can rewatch the class 2 years later in case you wanted some details on it, and that is a fantastic feature. So make sure to check out the website to see what courses they have available and what's coming up in the future. This podcast is brought to you by Jarhead Diagnostics. Jarhead Diagnostics manufactures in-house diagnostic equipment and storage solutions, as well as distributes for companies like Pico, ATS, and TopDon. One of my favorite tools that I've bought from Brandon and Jarhead Diag is the case for the U-Scope. If you don't have a U-Scope, you probably should, but if you have one, you got to get one of these 3D printed cases, has a magnet on it, has a full-size BNC lead that you can connect to, and it gets rid of the weak point of that scope, which is the mini BNC connection, which is pretty fragile. This case makes this thing nice and secure and makes it an even better tool than it was. So check out jarheaddiag.com. The link is in the show notes. This episode is brought to you by L1 Automotive Training and Keith Perkins. If you're looking for education on module programming, J2534, EEPROM work, key and immobilizer, electrical diagnostics, or drivability diagnostics, Keith has a website, l1training.com, that's got over 60 hours of training videos on all those subjects and more. When I first started out doing mobile, I utilized Keith's videos on module programming in J2534 in order to get my head wrapped around what I would need for the tooling, the computers, the software setups, what kind of obstacles I would be up against when I'm out there programming modules on cars. And it was a huge benefit to me. And I continue to use the training videos that he has on his website. So I strongly recommend checking out l1training.com. We have got Auto Rescue Tools and Isaac Rodell as a sponsor for this podcast. Hey guys, if you're looking for programming laptops, you want the laptop set up ready to go for programming control modules on vehicles, you need key cutting equipment, you need diagnostic tools, Isaac is your guy. Has all that stuff available for purchase, and the support that he offers along with the purchase has been outstanding. I bought some stuff from him in the past. I got my Dolphin key cutting tool from him several years back. And again, the support has been phenomenal. Helped me out along the way with anything additional I needed to make it work for me. Also, for the month of June 2023, they've got Autel updates for sale. So make sure to check that out as well. Again, that's autorescuetools.com. The link will be in the show notes. Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field. Hey, what's going on, automotive world? Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast with me, Sean Tipping. I am going to be your host for today's episode. Joining me on the show is Cody Gaddie. He's been on a couple times before. Many of you are familiar with Cody. He's got a YouTube channel,
he's also transitioned in the last year to being a mobile technician, doing the diagnostics and the programming for his area in Arizona. So that's going to be the main focus of our conversation today, is a lot of the nuances, a lot of the struggles, and a lot of the good things about being a mobile technician. So if you're a mobile technician yourself, you're considering it, you find that line of work interesting, this is a really good conversation. So I am excited to get right into it with Cody.
So yeah, whenever I don't hit record, I miss good conversation. And then whenever I hit end record too early, I miss good conversation. That happened the last time with Matt and Matt. We ended up talking for like another 45 minutes after I stopped the recording. And there was some discussion that wasn't going to be on the podcast anyways, but there was also discussion where I'm like, oh, that was really good. Fonzo made a really good point about something and we missed it, but yeah, so I'm just going to let it record and I can edit out whatever I need to.
Yep, exactly. Editing is, that's the beauty of it.
For sure. Well, how's life going for you? How's the mobile world treating you?
It's going good, man. So yeah, I obviously started in January, my mobile company and stuff, and a lot of the inspiration and everything was, following you and a bunch of other mobile guys out there. And, with COVID happening and just my work situation, things just kind of aligned to where it just came to a point that I was like, man, it's either now or never, and if I don't do it, I'm always going to wonder, like, what if, so yeah, it's been good. I hit the ground running, and I was actually going to take 2 weeks off between putting my notice into the shop and then getting my toolbox home and everything. And I was going to take 2 weeks and before starting the mobile and stuff. And man, I started getting calls right off the bat, and I didn't even start advertising. So I was like, you can't say no. You know what I mean? If I say no now, will I ever get a call back? So right. There wasn't a 2 week span there. And so, yeah, that's, it's been good. It's been a huge humbling experience. On top of that, you think stuff, and just like programming, you think programming. I've been programming for 12 years, but a lot of it has been, reprogramming, like updates, on GMs or Fords or whatever. It hasn't been, complete module replacements. And now it's, you realize how much you don't know until you go mobile. So it's been humbling. Yeah. But yeah. Good. So yeah, I mean, is that the same kind of experience with yourself, or?
Yeah. It is such a unique job that we do. I'm sure there's other stuff out there like it, but I wouldn't know what to compare it to in other industries. I'm sure there's, like field service engineers, right? I guess that would be the comparison, but it's just such a unique thing every day, because you never know what you're going to walk into. And sometimes it's gravy and other times it's just a complete mess and everything in between. But you wake up and you head out in your van in the morning. You don't know what's coming at you, what surprise is going to be around the corner. But man, it's just so... It's extremely challenging, but it's also rewarding equally when you can get through all of the BS at the end of the day and you make all of it work. Sit back at the end of the day like, okay, that was satisfying to push through all of that. But yeah, it's not for everybody, because there are points where it's going to knock you down, like you said, humble you. I get that almost every day with these stupid cars.
Oh, I tell you what, man. And I'm not a quitter, but there's been days or weeks or whatever, it seems like you get a rough week. And I know we've kind of chatted about it in like the groups and stuff, like if one thing doesn't add up, like the whole week can kind of, go to shit. And it's one of those weeks that you're like, man, am I doing the right thing? But it's one of those, I'll sit over the weekend and I'm like, I had the same kind of challenging weeks even when I was at the shop, where just like nothing seemed to work. Nothing, the stars did not align or whatever. So it's just for how much I'm like, man, okay, I quit. I'm done with this. It's then you get that one car that's been to 4 shops that you figure out in 30 minutes, not because you're awesome or whatever. You may have gotten lucky, but it's that one that one car that makes it all worthwhile kind of thing. And to be able to I guess my biggest enjoyment of being mobile is being able to help out all, not just one shop, to help out all of, pretty much Tucson and surrounding areas and stuff. And to kind of be like that guy that they call for the last resort. And, when you do figure it out, it's like, it's just, okay, you're doing the right thing. You know what I mean? It changes your outlook on it and everything. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean that it's definitely been challenging. It's been rewarding, man. I've learned the last 7 months. I've learned so much. I realize that you need to have multiple ways to do a single job, or multiple tools to do a specific job, because not one, where one tool fails, you need to have backups on your backups kind of thing. Multiple J boxes, or, there's times where the factory stuff just isn't going to work, and you have other aftermarket tools like, IO and stuff like that. And to get that job done.
Yeah. It's the learning curve when you're doing this is crazy, because it's like that hockey stick graph, right? It's just all of a sudden you're like taking off, because you're getting all these super challenging cars that you'd see, once every 6 months at a shop. You're getting 3 or 4 of them a day. So yeah, it's huge. Going back to what you were saying about, being able to help out these shops and, assist them through all these problem cars. What have you found has been the reception to you coming in? You're just starting out with a new shop, right? Doing this. What's the reception from the technicians or the people up front? Is it generally welcoming? Do you have people that are standoffish, somewhere in between? What's it like for you?
No, and that's a good question, because obviously going into this, that was not a concern of mine, but it was like, yeah, how are people going to be receptive to like me coming in, or me even dropping off flyers and stuff? Are they going to be like, no, we do diagnostics, or we do programming? It's like, well, okay, just if you guys run into something, let me know. But I'll tell you what, man, after getting going, it's been awesome. I mean, now that I've been established, but let me back up. So let's say I'm going into the shop for the first time, that they called me, that's 90% of my customers. I did very little advertisement, just because, like I said, I started getting calls right off the bat. And so it's different kind of when they're calling you, because it's like, man, we need you, or we just put this module in and it needs programmed or whatever. So after I'm there, like the first time, and everybody's like, hey, how you doing? Now it's to a point that, man, I'm walking through the back door of the shop. I'm not going through the front. I'm walking in like I'm one of the employees and stuff, and, know all the techs by name, and they're like, hey, what's going on? And of course, everybody has questions and stuff like, hey, I have this one car. And, so for how much time that you spend, not even on the physical car that you're working on, but like to help out with maybe some other cars and just, them picking your brain for a little bit. But I'm not complaining about that, because it's been nice. I enjoy passing on, what little bit I know, to if it can help somebody else out on a car that they may have, and maybe not necessarily the vehicle that I'm there to work on. So like I said, it's the first time going into any shop. It's scary because you just don't know how guys are gonna respond to you being there. And I didn't know if people would think like, okay, this is a threat or what. But no, man, I mean, everybody's been really, really welcoming. There was one shop that I told myself I'm absolutely never going back to, just because it was it was a shady experience. It was just I wouldn't even consider it a shop. It was like a guy with a lift in his backyard that got my number from another shop. And Man, he didn't want to. I originally showed up. I sent a message to him saying, "Hey, I'm going to be there by 8 o'clock." Uh, or no, let me back up. So I talked to him, a couple days before, told him, here's your appointment time. It's 8 o'clock on a Friday. He says, okay. So I show up at, 8 o'clock on a Friday, and he's nowhere to be found. I try calling him. His phone's turned off. So I end up leaving, and he calls me about 10 o'clock and says, hey, I'm here now. Okay, well, now I have to, finish these other appointments and stuff. So you're kind of on the back burner. I'll see if I can get back to you. So I end up getting back to him, and the thing is, he didn't want to pay me. He questioned everything I did. It was one thing after another, and then so it was just the whole experience. Like, he was blocking the door from me, like, leaving, which was it was weird. And I don't know how you guys are or whatever, like being mobile, but I go to some pretty shady parts of town. So it's one of those, man, the one thing, I don't leave home without, a gun and stuff. And it sucks to be like that, but you just can't be too careful anymore. And it was one of those, it was like, man, what the heck's going on right here, man? Like, it just was not, it was just me and this other guy. So if anything happened, there's no witnesses, I just did not feel comfortable about the situation whatsoever. But besides that, out of the last 7 months, that one quote unquote shop is the only, place that's really left a bad taste in my mouth. And, I was just told myself, I won't go back. If he ever calls or whatever again, it's just not a customer I want to deal with. So could you say that I fired him? Yeah, possibly. I just know to myself, I'm not going to go back to that shop. But other than that, man, everybody, like I said, has been real receptive. And after I've been to a shop a couple times, like I said, I'm walking through the back door. I know where their parts are at. If they have a control module sitting on their shelves, and if I needed to borrow a tool, or if I need a helping hand with something, 9 times out of 10, most shops are, man, there's somebody already there, and they're offering me water, or they're going to McDonald's, and it's like, hey, do you want anything? So it's been, you feel like you're one of the team members at each one of these shops, and it's pretty cool. And that's for myself, that's just really rewarding. I feel that's been one of my the best experiences, just because, I'm not just helping out a single location, and I'm able to go all around town. I'm not stuck in one location. I'm seeing different guys on different days, and I'm not dealing with one crap service manager day in and day out. If there is somebody I don't really care for at that shop, man, I deal with them for an hour and a half and then I'm on to the next job. Yep. So it's that part of it. Yeah, it's been nice. And they also, I've also had my butt kicked on some of these cars and stuff, because, we're getting called out after, the easy stuff's been replaced, the Identifix direct hit, it needs X, Y, and Z, and those parts have already been replaced. And then they're calling you in, and let's say it's a network issue or whatever. And it's intermittent. So, that's another thing I'm trying to work on, being mobile, because intermittent, oh man, that's tough. And I'm trying to stay away from those, but sometimes you don't know until you show up that they're like, oh, it's intermittent after 20 minutes. And you're like, oh man, I wish you would have told me that, I would have planned differently. But yeah, it's been, it's been good. It's been challenging. It's been a huge learning curve. I will say, going mobile, it's having a strong network of guys that you can bounce ideas off of, guys like yourself and everything else that have done this, or ideas to try, because, you're kind of like the last resort. So for myself, I feel that, pride starts getting in the way, to where it's like, man, okay, I'm not charging this shop any more money. At this point, I just need to figure this thing out. And that's a horrible business model. But, I like it. I like getting the cars done and finished and figured out, and leaving them with at least an answer or a direction of where to go. And that's something I wanted to bring up to you. I know we've talked a little bit, but like intermittent issues being mobile, how do you handle those?
Yeah, that is a really tough one that, like you said, you don't always know that it's intermittent until you get there. So I try to ask, or, if there's any hint on the phone that it's an intermittent, I'm like, how intermittent is this? Because I didn't do this at first, but I try to let them know right up front, hey, if I can't get this stacked up and it's not one of those things where we can visually find something, I'm still going to have to charge you my time. And like I said, I didn't do that at first. I didn't say that. I wasn't aware of it.
Exactly. And I'm doing that now, but at first it was hard to sit there and okay, you're charging for my time, even though I didn't give you an answer. But then again, this is also a business. If I won $1 million, or not $1 million, if I won $20 million in the lottery or whatever tomorrow, I would just go around and be a Paul Danner and start diagnosing all these cars for free for everybody, because I don't need the money, But at the end of the day, this is a business, and you do have to charge for your time. But that was something that I'm still, working on. It is getting better. But like you said at the beginning, I was like, oh, I'll spend 3 hours on a car, and it's like, I don't have an outcome, so we'll just call it good. What? That's devaluing myself, and it didn't work out the way that I thought it would, and that's just a horrible way to run a business.
Yeah, I struggle with that too. I want to provide a good service to the shop, and you get to the end of something and you don't have a 100% answer. I don't feel like I provided the service, and so it's tough for me to charge. But like you said, yeah, your hour, 2 hours, that's extremely valuable to you when you realize you could have, programmed some GM TCMs and made a bunch of money in that same time. You just lost out. And then, for you specifically, like, this is your main income now, you got to consider that. So yeah, I actually try to push off the intermittent stuff if I can tell right up front. I'm like, just call me when it's more frequent, and I can give you a specific answer. If they really want me to, I'll give it a shot. And sometimes you get lucky. Actually, I had that Impala that I was messaging you guys on the group chat this morning.
Oh yeah.
It was they said the dash was dropping out, like the gauges and the lights and stuff, intermittently, but they couldn't get it to do it. And so I gave them the intermittent speech, and I got into it, and I couldn't get it tacked up either, but everything had communication class 2 network codes in it on the network, and I couldn't talk to the SRS module. So I was like, okay, well, it's a good place to start. I just pulled the carpet back, found the SRS module. This thing is like growing green and white crusty stuff out of it. And I like wiggle the connector, and I could get the network to drop out. So I was like, okay, well, there you go. That's an intermittent that I could definitely find, but it doesn't always work that way.
And it was process of elimination. You had to know which direction to go, and that's your experience and everything else. And sometimes, you get lucky on those kind of cars. But I'll take those quote unquote easy ones all day long, where you're in and out, and because sometimes you just never know what you're getting into.
I had a shop just recently, a new shop. They got my number from somebody. They called me out, and the first like 2 or 3 cars that I went and did, they just happened to be super, I don't want to say easy, but the fix was very apparent once I got there. I'm like, okay. I mean, I don't know, maybe just experience or whatever. I'm just like, okay, I know what's going on here. And so I'm like in and out in half an hour, and these guys have days into these cars. So they're like, wow, this guy's really smart. Oh my gosh. When
he's brilliant.
I don't really feel that way. And I'm just waiting for, an actual like ass kicker to get a call to that shop, and I'm going to actually spend an hour or 2 on something and be like, what's wrong? You're not doing this in a half an hour now. So I don't know. It's a cool feeling to walk in and do that, but I don't know if I want to set that expectation right off the bat with every single shop.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know as well as I do, you can't be in and out in a half hour for everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then,
exactly.
but on the flip side, you also don't want to feel like you're the guy that goes in there and you're spending 3 hours on every single car and stuff either, and it's like, oh, there's the issue.
Right.
So it's, yeah, we'll take those all day long. I know I have a shop, and this is something I kind of wanted to bring up, but obviously we know about the tech shortage. You've had multiple podcasts about it and everything else. I have one shop in particular. It's the owner and pretty much a C-level technician. There's no drivability guy or anything else because he can't find one. It's one thing to find a technician. It's another thing to find a drivability guy. So, he'll call me for any of his drivability, vehicles that comes in. So it's one of those, that's kind of similar to what you were talking about. I go in and the last 4 cars that I've had, man, I've been in and out in 30 minutes. And he's ecstatic because he's not turning these customers away, so he can keep it in-house, while he continues to look for a drivability guy. So, it's not limiting him, by not he's not turning away this work and stuff, which is nice. But yeah, there have been, some knock sensors chewed and wiring, chewed and stuff from the pack rats, from the soy and everything else. And it's like, get the borescope down there, run the codes. You're like, oh, okay, this is what you guys need. Thanks. I'll talk to you later. Give me a call on the next one.
Some of these service managers or shop managers or whatever, they see us as an actual, a really good money-making tool for them, right? They're like, okay, I can call this guy, come in, tell me what's wrong, and I can keep everybody else rolling. And I've been to a few shops like that where they're ecstatic to have somebody like that to call.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what to expect when I first went around, marketing myself and going to shops. But yeah, they're very receptive to having that person come in and be able to solve a problem for them. I've had a few technicians that were a little standoffish because of that. I think because, they still want to do some of the diagnosis. I would, like when I was a tech, I would have been, I don't know what the word is, upset.
Like,
yeah.
My ego would be bruised.
But a lot of them have a different mindset. They just want to hang ball joints and make money and replace whatever part is wrong. And they don't care if somebody else is giving them the answer. So I would say generally the reception from technicians has been pretty good for me. Like you said, I've made quite a few friends out there. And a couple of these guys, I'll go to their houses and diagnose stuff for them now too. Gotten to know a lot of the people too around my area. Like you said, not just one shop, like you're growing your network locally too, the automotive world around where you live, not just one group of people. It's pretty cool.
It is. Yeah. And I know that, you can kind of tell. It's funny walking into a shop. You can usually tell, or at least for myself, like, and I'm sure it's probably the same with you. Like, you can usually tell within the first 5 to 10 minutes of being there. Do they know what they're doing? And this sounds bad, but do they know what they're doing, or are they just throwing parts? Mm-hmm. There's some of the shops that I go into that, when they call me and they say they need this control module programmed, I know I'm going to be in and out in 30 minutes because it needs that control module. I don't need to double check anything, it's going to fix this issue because that's how good these techs are. While I know that some other shops, when they call me and they say it needs a control module, okay, you're going to be probably planning on, it not fixing the issue. So kind of, schedule your day accordingly because it may turn into a diagnostics, and that's just, like I said, I can usually tell this on how in depth do these guys are they just throwing parts, or do these guys really value the diagnostics and really go in depth, and you're just the last step to get this car back on the road.
Yeah, you can question a tech, and I think pretty quickly, know what their abilities are, or at least what testing they've done, if any, right? If you start asking them about, what's going on, and they're not really saying, hey, I measured this, or I checked this. It's more of, well, we tried this part and then we tried that part. There's definite difference there, and you can pick up on that pretty quick. When you talk to or go into some of these shops, I don't know why I thought of this, but when I come in, some of the guys, they'll call me the computer guy. That's my name. Oh, you got to call the computer guy. Do you have any of your shops that give you a nickname or anything like that?
Oh yeah. No, yeah. I'm the computer guy. I mean, I have my programming backpack that's got, both my CF53s and all my interfaces, and it makes it nice that, I'm just pretty much grabbing the backpack and my maintainer, and I can go into any shop, and if I need this pass through, or if I need this pass through, I kind of keep it all in one bag, so it's not multiple trips out to the truck. So yeah, I'm the backpacker, the computer guy, or the like I'm the nerd walking in, like coming to program this car.
But that's what some of them think, is that we've got the magic tools to figure out what's wrong. Obviously, sometimes our tools are what is allowing us to do something. I'm more on the programming side, but a lot of them think like I have some special tool that they don't have access to that's allowing me to figure out the problem, when, I mean, everything I have is available to them. My normal diagnostic stuff, like a U-scope and a test light and a Autel or a launch, they could buy all that stuff, right? So it's I don't know. I try to help them out too. Like, hey, dude, buy the $700 launch. Like, spend a few bucks and you got an awesome scan tool. I try to help out as much as I can with the ones that are open to it.
Yeah, actually, so I had one of my shops, they're looking at getting a new scan tool and everything, and asking my suggestions, and so I gave them my suggestions, and I actually got them, since we know a network of distributors for tools and stuff. I reached out to one of the guys that I know, and got them a price and everything, and got them set up on a saved them like $800 on this tool, on this Autel, compared to going to the parts house where they were looking at buying it and stuff. So I saved them money. I gave them my suggestion. I even got them in touch with one of the distributors and stuff, and they were super excited. And then when they got it, it had a scope and stuff. So they're like, hey, we'll pay you to come down and just show us, how does this tool work? So I got them set up on the auto auth. I showed them, the scope, and kind of just walked them through it. And it's my first time playing with the Autel. I think it was the 909, or 919. I think it was the 919. So it was my first time playing with it. So I probably wasn't the best guy to teach him, but a scan tool is a scan tool. If we have to, if you've worked with one and you've worked with multiple, and I mean, a scope is a scope, it's just voltage over time. So it's just knowing where those little, where the settings are and stuff is the biggest thing. And, so I'm walking them through, and they're like, oh man, you can check the network right from, the breakout box, or not the breakout box, but the VCI and these tricks and everything else. And these guys have never, there's like probably 3 scopes in the shop that they've never used. They're grabbing their meters before their scopes. And, so me going in and showing them, like, I found this issue using this tool, and I'll take screenshots like, hey, check it out. This APP sensor, this 5-volt sensor is going to 12 volts. So how is that even possible? So I ended up finding a short to power on the wire. And it's like, this isn't something you would have found with, just with scan data, because scan data was showing it going to 100%. Well, it's not showing it's going to 12 volts. You know what I mean? So, because there wasn't a voltage PID. Yeah. So it was one of those. And I was like, man, without the scope, I mean, yes, they could have found that with a meter. But, now I see these guys they're going in and they're breaking out their scopes and trying to learn how to use it. And I'm like, hey man, if I can help push somebody to use a tool that they have readily available, that they've never used, that they've spent thousands of dollars on, man, okay, I may not be getting paid for that, but I'm stoked to see guys pushing themselves further. Sometimes they just need that little bit of that push to be like, hey, look, it's not so scary. You hook this, you hook the black to ground right here or to the battery, and then this one right here just goes right here. It's this simple. Oh my gosh, it's just like the light bulb goes off. And I'm sure you see this a lot with teaching and stuff. So it's one of those it's a super rewarding experience to see guys like, oh sweet, I'll use this tool now or practice with it,
Yeah, it's really cool to see people that are open to it too, that want to learn. And some of them want to learn, but they've been in the grind of a flat rate system or a poorly run shop for so long that it's tough to even consider taking the time to learn something when you're scrambling all day just to get your hours in, right? And I could spend an hour here learning something on the job, which probably isn't the best way to do it, but this is the mindset of a lot of the techs is I could spend an hour here doing this, or I could just throw a part at it, let's throw a module at it, and then I'll move on to my next job and keep grinding out those hours to hit the numbers. And it is really tough. I feel for the guys because I know the situation that a lot of them are in. But you find somebody that at least wants to learn. Yeah, I want to help them out as much as I can. Try to get them there, because in the big picture, it'll help them make them some more money if they can make the right calls on stuff.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what. I mean, I worked. I know the flat rate game, and I didn't get in depth into diagnostics until later in the game, because that same thing, the flat rate, and what I saw was, I thought throwing parts at cars was how you did it. If that part didn't fix it, you throw the next part or whatever, and didn't really start diving in deep into diagnostics until I started getting tougher cars. And then once I started getting tougher cars, then these other shops knew that, oh man, if we have this car, we'll send it to Cody. He'll look at it, he'll work on it. So then I started digging deeper and deeper and deeper, and educating myself in the trainings and everything else. But at the beginning, I was that guy, and I was making great money, throwing parts at cars. And once I started digging deeper into diagnostics, my hours weren't the same, because I'm spending an hour over here diagnosing a network issue, let's say, and this guy over here spends 45 minutes hanging shocks and struts and just made 3 hours. It's like, well,
yep.
That's where the flat rate, flat rate is awesome if you're a parts banger.
Yep.
And as I got deeper and deeper, and I wanted to focus solely on drivability and stuff, because it is challenging. Like you said, each car, you never know what you're walking into. Yes, there are some pattern failures and stuff, but usually the pattern failures, those shops have already replaced those parts at that time. So you're not necessarily walking into these cars like, oh, I know exactly what's going on with this car. They've already replaced the easy stuff, so you're here to, okay, what else could it be? Network issues I see is a huge thing for shops, and rightfully so. I was scared with networks, years ago. Now I look at it, man, I would take a no communication module over a lot of other things,
Yep.
because it's barely, now I know my process and my approach on how to go about it and stuff. But at the beginning, some guys don't understand, checking powers and checking grounds, or even checking a 5-volt reference, how that can, make the computer pretty much, go to sleep, and so giving them that guidance, or I'm in and out, and this is a car they've had for 3 days, and you figured it out in 30 minutes or an hour or whatever. They're excited that you figured it out. You feel like you have your place, and I feel like we're always gonna have a place in the industry. But I think this is something definitely, customers don't realize that these shops call us in to kind of save the day. And, with that being said, there's some of these shops that, okay, let's say, Sean, you go in there and you save the day, and maybe this isn't a shop that should have the day saved. Like maybe they shouldn't have their doors open, but you save the day, and next thing you know, that customer tells all their friends, like, man, this shop is awesome. They figured out this car that 4 other shops couldn't figure it out. Take it to them. And so it's like, are we, on that same note, are we enabling these poorly run shops to stay in business? And, that, I don't know how you feel about that.
There's a couple shops that I go to that fit that bill exactly. One specific, and I know they're not listening to this, so it doesn't matter, but they should not be open. They shouldn't be. The awful way to run a shop. Good people. I like the guy that runs it, but he should not be running a shop. And they're so far off the mark. And me coming in there, diagnosing this stuff for them, I know it was allowing them to keep the ball rolling, right? Yep. And it's like you said, the customer, generally speaking, has no clue that that's happening. We're just behind the scenes. I mean, imagine if you went to the doctor, right, and they called some guy that drove around in a van to show up and run some diagnostics and then head on to the next doctor's office. So that would be so odd. You'd be very questionable about the place you're going and everything if that was happening. But it's happening to people's cars all the time. It's a very unique job that we do. And so I had Tommy and Dutch and Lucas on, that was a couple months ago, to talk about just that. Are we a crutch for these shops? And we went through it. And yeah, I think in some ways we are, but we're using our expertise, our specialty, our passion. And I think it's cool because we're creating something that didn't exist. I'm sure there's been mobile guys for a long time, but not as commonplace as it is now. 20 years ago, this really wasn't a thing. This wasn't an option for someone to do, but it's been created by, pioneers, really. I'm not including myself. I'm talking like the guys that have been doing this for a long time that are just awesome. People I look up to. Yep. They're pioneers in creating this new thing, and who knows what it'll evolve into, right? Maybe it'll grow to something more. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's actually a question I wanted to bring up to you. Where do you see the mobile as far as going? Do you see it being? I don't see it going anywhere, but do you see there being more mobile guys or more specialists out there as these cars advance?
I think that there's going to be more companies than are currently present running mobile services. And we have a couple around here, like they're actual like corporate, they have super nice, huge Nissan vans, everything's printed on the sides. It's like, and you'd go as an employee and work for this company. And I know there's other examples of that across the country, but I think that's going to become more commonplace. And I know the need that we have, right? How many phone calls we're getting every day. And so people with some money are going to pick up on that and start building entire fleets or services to provide this. Because obviously the cars aren't getting any easier. And there's a lot of independent shops out there, right? They can't all just go poof and go by because the cars are tough. There's going to be people that take advantage of it to make money. And I think we'll see more and more of that. But I don't know. I like working for myself.
And I do too. But I definitely see it going that direction to where, like you said, there will be more mobile companies. I actually brought up to my employer that I was at for years and years and years about hey, get me a van, since all these locations, because we have, or that company has like 15 locations here in Tucson. Hey, get me a van and I can go around and help out each one of these shops. That way they're not towing the cars to me. I can go to them and help them out, save, towing charges. But on that same note, we can also go to other repair shops and help them. We don't even have to put the name of the company on the side of the van or anything else. Like, kind of pitching to them, you guys invest a van to me. I already have the tools and stuff, and let me go mobile and do this. And they didn't see a return on investment. That being said, yesterday I get a call from the old CEO of that company. Now works for another company that I go to, and he calls me and asks me how much to program a Nissan and if I was able to do it. And I told him, I was like, yes. And so I tell him the price, and he's like, do you happen to know how much the dealer is? I was like, yeah, I do. So I told him the price, and granted, I am not much more than the dealer, but I am more than the dealer. There's also a convenience factor, and I can get it done that day. And there's a lot that,
Yep.
It costs me like $50 an hour to keep my business running, so, there's subscription costs and everything else, fuel, insurance. It's not like you pocket all that money. And, Sean, I mean, constantly investing into new tools, new factory tools. So I tell him, and I am a little bit higher, and he's like, well, and it's just funny because he knows about programming. He's the one that started me programming 12 years ago and stuff. He brings up, he's like, well, that's not going to, I have to charge more than that to make it worth it on my end to the customer. And I was like, yeah, we know this. I was like, yeah. but Mike, everything that's involved from the tooling and the knowledge. And here's the thing. I bet if you call the dealer right now, they're going to say you're going to be a week and a half out till you can get it programmed. I can come within the next 45 minutes. So is that worth an extra $15 to you? Or spending or sending two guys to drop it off at the dealer. So you're taking two guys away from the shop that's not being productive to go drop off a car and then maybe pick it up. And then, yes, you charge more than what the dealer's charging. You make a little bit of profit right there, but that's still two guys away from the phones or whatever in the shop, two separate times, for a pickup and drop off. Yep. So is that worth an extra $15 for you? I just think it's funny. I was like, and I love the guy. Don't get me wrong. I love the guys. I spent 14 years, and he was the whole reason I was there. But I was just like, come on, this is business. I have, this is my business now. And you know how this works. So, yeah, it's just funny. There's that convenience factor,
So the other thing is towing it to the dealer, right? A lot of the modules, it's not drivable. So you got to tow it to the dealership. So it's a cost, but also you got to let your customer know, hey, your car is no longer at our facility. It's at another shop to get this done. Whereas they call you, it's still in-house. And like you said, the customer doesn't always know that we are even present. And they can just get it all done in-house. So that's part of that convenience fee too. I had a very similar experience to what you're talking about, though. When I was going to leave Firestone in 2017, because I started teaching, I said, hey, do you guys want to keep me on? Because in the Twin Cities, Firestone owns Tires Plus. So between Firestone and Tires Plus, I think there's like 20 stores in the Twin Cities. I could be off on that number, but there's quite a few. And I knew a lot of the people because I worked there for like 7 years or so. And I was like, do you want me to be your diagnostic guy? Tell me what store to go to, pay me my hourly or heck, I don't know, even flat rate. And I'll go to whatever store you want and do the diagnostic, and that'll be that. And I'll work specifically for Firestone, or I'll continue to work for Firestone, right? Yeah. The guy's like, no, I don't think we'll need that. That's just not a position. It's not realistic. We won't have enough work for you. Okay, cool. So then I left Firestone, and now I service just about every single one of those Firestone Tires Plus stores, but I get to set my rate and call the shots, right? So, you know, not to
it's funny how
rub
that
it in the guy's face, but
yeah. No, exactly. And the whole reason I left that company was because I felt them going in a different direction and getting away from programming and stuff. And fun fact, like I was absolutely correct. You know, they got away from it. So now I am these 14 locations in town. I am their programmer, you know? So, but like you said, now I can set my rate. And you know, it's kind of funny how everything, you know, goes in circles. You know, the last 3 shops that I've worked at, I service all 3 of them. And, you know, so there's no hard feelings or anything else. I just
Right.
felt myself going in a different direction. And, you know, it's awesome that I get to go back and see the guys, chat with them, you know, catch up on everything that's going on. And then I'm out, you know, and I'll see you guys next time. Like, I appreciate it and stuff. So it's something that I probably should have done years ago, when I was unhappy, because I went years of just being completely frustrated, just, you know, from networking with guys and seeing how some other shops run and everything else, and just starting to question. You know, I was questioning, do I stay in this field? You know, I have so much invested in everything else, but, you know, doing the ball joints and breaking my back, pulling motors and transmissions and stuff, like, I'm not getting any younger. My hours are going down. I'm working longer hours so I can still make up my efficiency, you know. So I'm working till 7 o'clock at night so I can still get, you know, 70 hours a week or whatever, so I can still have that nice paycheck. And my body hurt, man. And you know, it's just, I see some of these guys at 65 years old and they are just beat up. You know, I didn't want to be that guy. Just completely, you know, the body's just wrecked from just years of hard work and stuff. And on the same note, you know, ball joints didn't they didn't excite me anymore. Brakes didn't excite me anymore. There wasn't that challenge like I was looking for. And, you know, and to go into a shop and be like, hey, I want to be your drivability guy, and I just want to do the diagnostics. I don't want to do any of the repair or anything else. You go into an interview like that, you look like a prima donna that, you know, I'm asking for this much money. I'm not doing X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And it's like, I don't want to be that guy. But now I can be, because it's my business. And it's like, hey, this is what's wrong. This is what it needs to fix it. If you guys have any more questions, give me a call. And they're completely fine with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how that works out. Cause I hated doing the tires and the oil changes, but if you're there and it needs to get done, okay, well, you got to do it. Right. And if I never do a set of tires ever again, it'll be too soon. But
I hear you.
That's why I love doing this stuff is, we get to go out, and obviously we have a passion for it. So we're doing, you know, what we really enjoy too. I think that's something you got to have if you're even considering taking on a role like this, is to really be passionate and enjoy this stuff, enjoy the challenge of it. You got to embrace that. But if you can do that, I think, you know, anybody can be successful at this.
Yeah. And here, you're absolutely correct. I think passion is you don't go into the mobile side of it if you don't have a passion, and you're not constantly investing into yourself with you know, upgrading tools, or, you know, description operation on how systems are constantly changing. You know, you're the guy that kind of needs to stay up to date on all the new stuff, because like you said, I mean, we don't know if we're getting called into a 2020, you know, Toyota Camry that is, you know, dual fuel injection and everything else of a system we haven't ever worked on before. Well, we need to have that understanding before going into it, or we may get a 1992 Cadillac that, you know, so it's so broad on the systems that we need to know, or not necessarily need to know, but that we need to read up on to educate ourselves to get onto that same, that track to be able to diagnose it correctly. So it's so that, one thing about mobile, and I don't know if you're the same way, but if customers are calling me and they have an issue with a car, and I have them scheduled for, let's say, Thursday and stuff, I get a little bit of a description, what's going on. Let's say it's no communication to a control module. Well, I'll sit down at night and get the wiring diagrams and stuff before going into it. That way, when I'm going into it, I have the pinouts, I have this, that's 15 minutes that saves me from at the car, but it's the 15 minutes they don't see me working, that there's more behind. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's more behind the scenes of the constant education that they necessarily don't see when I'm there, if that makes sense. And it's just to help my day go along quicker,
Yeah. Well, and plus you got to diagnose QuickBooks on top of everything else, right?
Oh God, no, that was, man. that's
Did you get all that sorted out?
Well, no. So the lady's going through and she's fixing all my QuickBooks because it ended up getting deleted and everything else. So we spent 6 hours on it trying to get everything rectified, and we're to February. So we have a couple more hours at it to get it situated and stuff. But then, okay, so that's a perfect example. That's not something that threw a monkey in the wrench of my week. I have all these appointments and everything else, and I feel that, I'm going to have just a quick meeting with QuickBooks to try to get this resolved, and it turns into a 6-hour ordeal. Man, that completely set my week. I felt that I was just constantly behind and I couldn't play catch up. And, God forbid one other car gives me trouble. Now I'm even more behind. And man, it was one of those weeks like, okay, I quit, but now that the QuickBooks is getting taken care of and I feel that my books are where they need to be and stuff, I can rest easy. But that was stuff that was keeping me up at night,
Yeah.
And, thankfully it's not tax season right now to where I need to have all this submitted by a certain time or anything. So I can take some time and redo it all. That's not an issue, but there's those unexpected, things that pop up, and, how do you plan around that? Or how do you, if you're already telling a shop you're not going to be there for a day and a half, and then you're calling them back saying, hey, I'm even more behind now, and it's not going to be for another, day or so, man, you're going to have shops stop calling you,
Yep.
So it's a hard, you want to make everybody happy. And that's something that I'm a people pleaser. So I want to, if I have 3 shops call me at 8 o'clock, I'm telling all of them I'm showing up at 9. And that's been a bad thing of mine, that I'm like, okay, no, I need to plan, I need to be realistic about these. No, it's not going to be till noon. And now I've gotten to a point that I'm not giving a specific time, like, hey, I'll be there at 8 o'clock. I'm saying, I'll be there in the morning. Because that way, if I need to squeeze in another shop or something, I can do so. If it's on because I cover a huge area. I mean, I can drive 150 miles a day from all my jobs. So if there's 2 jobs that are close to each other, and I told one at 8 o'clock and the other one at 10 o'clock, and I have 2 other jobs on the other side of town, that's not being productive. So now I'm telling them, hey, I'll be there in the afternoon. I'll be there in the morning. That way, it leaves a window open that I can squeeze some other things in and plan my day accordingly. So that's really helped out. And shops have been understanding about that, and not giving like, well, what time? Afternoon. Afternoon. Like, it may be 3 o'clock, but it's afternoon.
That's super smart to do that. And I've tried to do that the best that I can too. Not set a specific time to say I'll be out in the afternoon, unless it's the first one of the day. But that geographic portion to it, because I'm the same way. I'll go 30 miles this way, I'll go 30 miles that way for different shops, because I'm kind of
spread out. The area I'm in is kind of spread out. And so you kind of hope that it all lines up so you can just make a straight shot across the cities, but that doesn't always work out. Sometimes you're back and forth. But the better that you can maneuver things to make it work, especially now gas is going up too. So I was actually gonna raise my rates just for that, because I'm spending all kinds of money on gas already. Yeah. Lots of drive time in this job. I don't think I've ever driven as much in my life as doing this job, especially this summer. I'm in the car a ton. So, you got to find some good podcasts or something to listen to.
Well, I was just gonna mention, this is a perfect, this is when I get your podcast knocked out. It's usually Monday morning, and I have at least something to look forward to, and knock out your podcast and ASOG and books on tape are awesome. And it sucks to even say this, but I'll put YouTube on or whatever and just play it in the background, as far as, if it's a class or a video or whatever. I'm not watching it, but it's the only time I have to pretty much get any of this stuff done, or to educate myself or whatever, because it is a lot of windshield time. Windshield time and time management is two huge things, and I feel that I'm getting better at the time management, and it's just little tricks, like I said, as far as, hey, I'll be there in the morning, I'll be there in the afternoon. This way, I can plan my day according. Usually, if it's the first shop of the day, I will tell them, hey, you're going to be the first shop of the day. I can be there at 7:30. I'll do that. That way, I know that the vehicle's ready at 7:30. Another thing that I started doing was, a lot of these shops, vehicle's not ready for me. It's got a dead battery. It's a driving issue, and it's buried 10 cars deep and stuff, and with a dead battery and a flat tire, and you show up and it's like, okay, I don't have 30 minutes to wait for you guys to fill up the tire, charge the battery and everything else for me to drive it. Like, I'll be back. Well, now it's trying to call ahead, like, hey, look, I will be there at 8. And now if the car's not ready by 8, after I've given them a courtesy call, now I feel that I have the right, if I'm coming back, I'm going to charge them, that I had to charge them a show up fee or whatever for time wasted. And that's something that I didn't do in the beginning. I would just show up. If car's not ready, like, dang it, that's my fault. Well, now if I feel that I'm doing my due diligence and I'm warning them, telling them a time that I'm going to be there and the car's not ready, now I feel I can charge them the show up fee on top of the services provided, because it is money. It's time wasted that I could have been making doing another job. And and I have one shop in particular that, man, it never fails. I mean, they say the car's ready, and I don't know how many times they can't find the keys, they can't this, they can't that, and I used to wait around. Now it's like, I'm out later. I'm kind of becoming not a jerk about it, but like, I'm not being nice about it. I have to go. And that's out of courtesy for my other shops that are in line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have one shop that I go to, and oh my gosh, it's actually a really good shop, and I really like the guy who runs it, but their key situation, like, I want to set up a freaking key box for them, because they can never find the key, and he's got it on his desk with all papers, just stacks of papers everywhere, and he's digging through, and he, put it in this drawer or whatever. I'm like, what are you doing? I mean, that should be just, so I would think it's really simple, right? Like, I got to keep track of these keys. Let's put some tags on them. Let's put them in a box. But every single time I go, I'm waiting for the guy to dig through his papers to find me the key for the vehicle. I've had it a couple times where I'll show up to a shop and they'll arrange it for a customer to drop it off the same time that I'm going to be there. And that's one where they'll give me a specific time, and then the customer doesn't show up, right? So I'm standing around twiddling my thumbs like, okay, well, if they're not here by this time, I'm out. See ya. But you gotta charge for your time at that point, and sucks, but it's the way it is. So, but I think what's important there, and I'm still working on this, is setting that precedence, right? Letting them know up front that this is what's going to happen. Then it's not as big of a deal as, if, and I'm giving myself as an example, I've done this, I'll wait until it happens like 3 times, and now I'm like, hey, now I need to charge you for this. That doesn't go over as well as just right up front being, hey, this is the way it is. So I don't know. It's all stuff you learn as you go, I guess. Maybe someone else can take from our advice.
Yeah, no, and I was the same way, and I think it was I forget who it was, but yeah, if you mention it up front, now you've laid the ground rules, but I was one that would show up and okay, it happened 4 or 5, 6 times, and now I'm starting to charge, and they're like, well, what the heck, man? So it's easier to set that rule, so to speak, up at the beginning and make it known up front, and then you don't have to resort back to that. As far as they know that they're getting charged if vehicle's not ready, it's not, oh, is Cody in a good mood and he's not going to charge us, or is he in a bad mood and he is going to charge us? It's like, no, it doesn't matter what kind of mood I'm in. We're setting the ground rules now that this is how it has to be, because it's a business. So yeah, it's that time management's been a huge thing. Learning those little nuances has been, a challenge in itself. But learning the little tricks and stuff, talking to other mobile guys has really benefited, talking to guys like Perkins and yourself, and how do each of you guys approach a situation? And maybe I'm doing it all wrong, and to hear from one of you guys or whatever, it's like, oh, I didn't think about doing it like that. It just helps. It makes you a better business person, because this is the first time I've ran my own business. I'm going to make mistakes. Everybody's going to, but you learn from them and you move forward, and you just try to make your business better. I just want to provide the best service possible that I can for my customers. Yes, I am more expensive than the dealer. I am more expensive on diagnostics and stuff too. But I want to show the value. Why am I more expensive? You're getting pre-scans, you're getting post-scans, you're getting, documentation of services performed and stuff that, the other mobile guy here in town just doesn't do. He's also charging a ridiculous, not a ridiculously low rate that it makes it hard for myself if I go into a shop that they've used this other guy before, because it's like, man, there's a huge difference. And I don't know how this guy, he doesn't use the programming as as his main source of income. This is like kind of a hobby for him. And so he goes about it completely different. While in reality, no mobile programmer should be significantly cheaper than the dealer, and that's just the bottom line. So, but there's only been a couple shops that have questioned me, but after they've used me one time, these shops have no problem paying more to use me than using this other guy, because I feel that I bring more value and more documentation and something more to the table, that they really don't have an issue paying me more than this other programmer, because they're getting more for their money. I will go above and beyond. If there's no communication and this guy's just the programmer, hey, I'm out. You owe me this money for showing up, and this is, I'm out. While I can actually come up with a resolution as far as, do you guys want me to dig deeper and figure out what's going on with this no communication? That's just something that the other guy doesn't provide, So yeah, it's, and I don't know how it is out there. If there is a lot of mobile programmers, there's only one guy here that it's not competition, like I said, but it's, how should I say this? I guess it is a little bit of competition, but I haven't seen that holding me back from obtaining, customers that were once his, if that makes sense. So I don't know if you have a bunch of that competition, so to speak, out there.
So I'm like half hour north of the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and like where I'm at, the northern area, there's nobody up here that does this. There's an established mobile guy down in the cities, and he actually runs, I think, like 4 or 5 vans. He owns it. He started by himself and he grew it, and he covers most of the cities, and he'll come up this way, but he charges obviously more to come up this way. So around here they use me, but I've been starting to, creep closer towards the cities just because people get my number and start calling me.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Minneapolis, St. Paul, it's a huge area together. It's twin cities, 2 cities right next to each other, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many shops, so many. There would be no way I could cover all the shops. I'd have, even if I worked 24 hours a day, I'd never be able to hit all the shops. So it really hasn't been an issue as far as competition. I did mention there's an actual company, I think it's called Smart Express. And I don't know a whole lot about them except for that they are ridiculously expensive. They wanted like $700 some to program a side detection module on a GM. And they showed me the invoice for the shop that got an estimate. I'm like, how? What? And I think they want to do. Like,
I'll do it for $690.
That's what I said. I was like, okay, well, I can go up on my rate here and still look like a hero.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so much need for this. Honestly, if you can market yourself right and just, be a friendly, helpful person. That's what I try to do, is just be friendly and helpful, and your name's going to get spread around like crazy, and you're going to have more work than you know what to do with.
Yeah.
That's been my experience. So hopefully it keeps going that way.
Yeah. Now, Sean, do you advertise still? Or, I know you said you did, like, when you first started out. Are you to a point that, man, you're good?
No, I'm good. I've actually told some shops, thank you, but stop giving out my number, because if I didn't teach, it'd be a different story. But my problem now is, once September hits, now I've got to say no to a lot of people or push stuff out, because my time is limited to, maybe I can squeeze in 2 or 3 after school, and then I got Fridays that we don't teach in person. So that's it. So I have a different setup, because this isn't my full-time gig besides the summer. And I was looking to hire somebody, and some stuff came up, just didn't make that happen this summer. But that might be in the future, is to get somebody on board to do some of my programming stuff, and then I can handle the diagnostics. But it's a unique person to find that would enjoy this.
It is.
Be good at this. You can trust, and it's tough.
I guess that's a question I have for you, as far as, obviously, you being a teacher and stuff. Do you see guys, or how knowledgeable are some of these kids coming out, as far as, like, the computer end of it? Obviously they have to learn the nuts and the bolts, and, being a mechanic or a technician, so to speak, and stuff. But do you see some students interested in, like, the tech, the computer systems, where the industry's going? Are they excited? Because I get a kick out of, like, ADAS and self-driving cars. I'm like, man, this future is going to be sweet. It's interesting. How are these guys? Do they think that they're going to be changing oil for the rest of their life? Because if you're just coming into this industry, doing an oil change in the next 30 years is not going to be a thing,
Right. No, there's a variety. Obviously, everybody's different, and you get some that they're that ball joint, engine, transmission swap guy, and they'll make plenty of money doing that. Don't get me wrong, but they don't want to really go much beyond that, at least at this point in their career. But you do have some that are really drawn towards the technology, and not only that, but I would say almost all of them, that are in their early 20s or around that age, they're just good with technology, right? They grab that Autel tablet and they'll fly through that thing and know how to do the settings, and it's an Android based thing, so they know all this stuff already before they even know what the scan tool is doing. So they have that advantage. But yeah, there's definitely been some that are interested. I was actually trying to hire one or a couple of my students, and we were sort of sort of working towards something that didn't end up happening. But I would not be opposed to that. Get somebody, fresh that you can teach the right way and start them out with, like I said, just here, you go do all my GM programming. I could teach. I feel like you can teach anybody how to do that, really.
Right. No, absolutely. And then you get to teach them the good. Yeah. And you get to teach them the good habits and mold them into what you would like, them to be, I think that would be definitely an awesome approach as far as that and stuff. I thought there was another question I wanted to ask you. Oh, so going off of when you're talking about your students, I mean, do you stay in touch with a lot of your students that have, graduated and stuff? And if so, like, is there some that leave the industry?
So I don't always know, when they leave the industry. I'm sure there's some, but I'll say this, the ones that have stayed in contact with me are still within the industry, but those are generally the students that really enjoyed their time in school and really enjoyed what they were doing. And that's why, they would form a connection with me that's beyond just the classroom, because I'm passionate about this stuff too. So generally those types of people will stay in contact one way or another, right? We have a shared interest. So the ones that do, it's usually Facebook or email. They're still working in shops, and actually a few of them I go to those shops, right? So they'll go to a shop and then they'll end up calling me in for diagnostic. So I get to see a few of them that way too. But it'd be interesting to see the numbers of who's still wrenching or in the industry in some form and how many have left. Cause I know it's not 100%, obviously.
Right.
But
well, and it just makes it hard. I mean, this is something that we were talking about the other day, the starting wage for some of these guys coming out of school. First of all, if they can get a job, because 90% of these shops want to see a return on investment, immediately from a guy getting hired. So they don't want somebody that's green, because they're going to their return on investment is going to take a little bit, until they start getting efficient and everything else. So, they want somebody that knows more, and, to start out being a technician, and you have to buy tools and it's this constant stuff. And you can go, be a roofer with, a bucket full of tools, making more money and never have to buy another tool ever, so it's, you don't realize all this. Like, I guess I didn't realize all this when I was doing it. I knew that there was an investment into the tools and constantly and stuff, but it was just the way of life. This is what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a technician, a mechanic. And, that's just what we did. And, with our shop, man, it was working like 6 days a week. That's just, if you want to be in this field, that's the norm, long hours, very little time with the family, very little vacations, crap pay at first. That's just how it was. And now being older and wiser and stuff, it's hard to tell guys that to like get into this business with those drawbacks. It's real hard to sell those, because deep down it's like, I don't want to discourage anybody from going into this business, but maybe it is finding a shop that's not flat rate, so you don't have that cutthroat attitude, and where other guys can actually take time and guide you, kind of hold your hand or mentor you a little bit, where it's not affecting their paychecks, so to speak. But man, you get into that flat rate mentality, and it's hard to get out of that. It took me 14 years to realize, like, what the heck am I doing? Flat rate's not the answer.
Right. Well, I remember I went from hourly to flat rate. I was actually hourly for the first, I want to say 4 years of my career as a tech. It was just the shop I worked at. He just wanted to pay hourly. And then that was when I went to Firestone. I went on flat rate. I was super worried. I was like, I don't think I'm going to make any money, but I had 4 years of experience under my belt. And so I doubled what I made from the past year my first year on flat rate. I'm like, well, why wasn't I doing this before? But it was only because I had spent that time hourly
Yep.
building up my skills and breaking stuff and messing stuff up on a, having that cushion. I know I'm going to get a paycheck, and then being able to transfer over. So, and that's almost the model that it should be if they want to keep going with it. But you got to have that path laid out for that student, right? To, like you said,
Yeah.
it's tough to get people to buy in on this as a career. They've got to be somewhere where that shop manager or that owner or whoever can lay out, this is the path, that you can take if you work hard. This is where you'll end up. This is where you'll be. Not just, try to bust out as many hours as you can until you retire, right? That's the
Yep.
classic model. And yeah, that doesn't appeal to too many people anymore.
Yeah, and absolutely, I agree with that. I know flat rate's gotten a bunch of grief, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I made a lot of money on flat rate, and it provided very nicely for my family and everything. But that being said, it also took a lot of time from my family, and that's one nice thing I do like being mobile is now setting my own hours and stuff too. Set my own hours, or if I want to go to lunch with the wife or whatever, we can meet up and have lunch together. Or first day of school, I don't have to. Hey, can I be a little bit late to drop my daughter off for the first day of school? I plan accordingly.
Yeah.
And I probably should give myself more time on certain things and stuff because I still work long hours and everything. But I'm home more for dinners. I'm here more in the mornings with the family and stuff before going to work. So I lost a lot of years of family time, but I'm really trying to regain it now. It's better late than never, So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm sure your days are long and stuff too, but how does that play in with your family and stuff?
Yeah, it definitely takes a toll for sure. I don't have kids, but yeah, you can work yourself to death, but you can just immerse yourself in it and say, I got to get this done. I got to get this done. I have to get this done. And I don't have time for these other things that seem trivial. But yeah, at the end of the day, that stuff away from work's a lot more important than you think.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, it goes by quick. You can't get that time back. So it's good to take a break and just say, hey, the work will get done when it gets done. Right. I'm not very good at that, but
no, and I'm not either. I that's just the kind of work ethic. I think you have to have a good work ethic if you're going to run your own business and stuff anyway, because it's real easy to be like, what, I'm not going to start work till 11. I'll work a couple hours today and I'll be home by noon or 2:00 or whatever. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm gone from 6:30 in the morning to 5:00, 5:30 at night, just like how I was when I was at the shop. But I'm busy that whole time. It seems like there's always something to do. What's been some of your biggest challenges being mobile, Sean?
Boy. I mean, obviously, some of the cars, right? That you get those certain cars that will kick your butt for sure. I'm actually trying to think if it's the diagnostic vehicles or if it's the programming ones, because I've had some both ways that have really kicked my butt. It's probably those diagnostic ones, right? The ones that just don't make sense and doesn't seem like it has a solution, and you got to go back 4 or 5 times to the shop to try to work it out. But on those, what's really helped me out a lot is like the networking and knowing other people like yourself, and like thank you for connected me with that group chat recently. That's
Oh, yeah.
fantastic to be able to have experts at your fingertips basically all day long.
Right.
That's been huge to get me past those ones that really hang you up. And I don't get them every day or even every week, but they come. They're out there waiting for me.
Yep.
As part of the gig. I would say other than that is that the business side of it for me has been challenging because I don't have a business acumen. That's just not my style. You'd start telling me about profits and numbers and I'm gonna fall asleep. Like that's just doesn't interest me. And so but you have to, like, if you, mine's a legitimate business. I know it's part-time, but you have to put in the time. You have to work through that stuff. Cause you got to be legitimate if you want to do this. So, I guess those are the biggest two for me. What about you?
I would say absolutely the same. Like I said before, I wasn't the business person, but you need to know business. And my biggest thing is, man, I wanted to keep legit books. Nothing's under the table. If they're paid in cash, there's an invoice for everything. I have a bunch of guys like, hey, just put it in your pocket. I don't need a receipt. I don't need this. It's yours. I'm like, no. I don't care. Everything goes through the business. I appreciate that, but that's just, I told myself going into it, this is, I don't want to jeopardize anything. So hence, like, man, I'm going to keep amazing books. I'm going to be on top of it and categorize and save all the receipts and this and that. And then when everything got deleted, I was like, how many hours you have into something until and then it's gone like that. I'm like, oh my gosh. So now I have to go through and reconcile, every single transaction for every single month and try to remember what was that $14 that I spent at, over here at what was that for? Was that for job supplies? Was that for, oh God, so I prided myself on keeping really good books. And then when that got taken from me in a matter of minutes, oh man, that's where I was like, I'm closing up shop. I'm done. But the thing is, life goes on and stuff. Oh, so my bank wasn't linking to QuickBooks Online. And that was the first time that my bank wasn't linking. It wasn't linking for like 3 or 4 days. So I ended up calling QuickBooks. They had somebody remote in. And this lady's overseas. I hear a rooster in the background the whole time, which is just annoying the crap out of me. I can barely understand her. And she's like, oh, you just click on this and you click over here and you click over here. Well, next thing you know, she deleted my checking account, unlinked my account. So now I have no transactions in my and
Oh, no.
I'm just like, so she pretty much reset my books to it's from day one and I'm 8 months in, I'm like, oh my God.
Geez.
And so then I tried calling multiple times to QuickBooks to get more help. I was getting to a point that I couldn't understand anybody. I was like, can I just talk to an American? I mean, I was getting so upset. And finally I got a hold of this lady or customer service and stuff, and they've reached out and set up an appointment, and she's going through each and every single transaction and redoing it because there was no backup. So I learned a lot this last week. Always back up your QuickBooks, even if it is QuickBooks Online, at least, once a month or weekly or whatever, you can export it to an Excel file. That's definitely going to be something I'm going to be doing from now on. And just know that, the cloud, just because it's on the cloud doesn't mean it's always going to be there. So, and we were getting ready to go on vacation last Friday, and then my motorhome, the fridge wasn't working, and then the whole QuickBooks and everything else that I was like, okay, vacation's canceled. I have to get this stuff figured out. Started this last week and was like, okay, those are some hiccups. You learn from it. And I've learned from it, and I learned things that I'm not going to do and things that I am going to do, and keeping, exporting my files once a week or once a month is definitely a must. And, just continue pushing forward. There's no giving up, but you're going to get thrown challenges and stuff. I think that, that was definitely a challenge, the business end of it. And then, like you said, as far as the cars where you're going back multiple times, network issues and it's not acting up for you and everything else, it's, all that takes time. And, it's hard being mobile because you have a full plate with all these other appointments, and then you have to set time aside for this problem car. Not just a problem car for the shop, but it's a problem car now for you, because now you're kind of married to it and you want to get it figured out. And, but once you do and you stay persistent, and it's just like anything else, you stay persistent and stuff, and you do get it figured out, there's that rewarding factor that just really, it outweighs all the struggles. And that's something that I've realized that, over the last 6 months, 7 months, it's really good to have multiple ways to do a single job. Like I said, multiple J boxes, multiple computers, because if one computer takes a crap, you have another backup or whatever. Multiple scan tools, because if a battery dies, or this tool does X, Y, and Z, or, aftermarket solutions to the programming and stuff if the OEM servers are down, or, man, it's really having, I thought I had a lot of tools going into being mobile. I was like, oh, I got these scan tools and everything else. And then you realize, like, oh crap, you want to do keys? Now that's a whole nother addiction. You want to do, you want to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, oh my gosh, man. And the thing is, with any of our tools, they all have a shelf life. It's not buying a socket set, a Snap-on socket set for $700 that's got a lifetime warranty that you'll never have to buy another one again unless you lose it. No, our tools are, we get 4 to 5 years out of each one, and then there's a new interface that came out, or there's, now Windows 11, or now there's this, or, it's that constant changing that it doesn't get any cheaper on our end. And honestly, looking back now, if I did own a shop or whatever, I honestly probably would not invest into programming, just because there is that constant changing. And if you don't stay current with it, you're falling behind. I mean, everything's always changing. If you don't do GM every single day, every single time you're going in, oh, how do I install that wrapper? Or is there this, or is that, or oh, now I have to use Chrome for checkout, and I can't use Internet Explorer. You don't know any of that stuff, you're
right.
Things that get you hung up, if you do it enough, they're not issues. But if you're not doing programming every single day, there's all those little nuances that just make life hard, So, internet connection at times. I have 2 hotspots now because, Verizon works great in some areas, T-Mobile works great in other areas. But then, it seems like there's always something with technology, just like, example, us today, So, but it's working through, it's finding ways to work through it. Sometimes you just have to come back because there's some things just aren't working out. But the business and those problem cars are by far the hardest. But having a nice network or other guys you can bounce ideas off of, or even somebody saying like, hey, I had one do this and it was X, Y, and Z. Oh, I didn't even think about something like that. And it just gets your brain thinking. And how would you find this stuff out? Because it's not there on Identifix. It's not, this is from other guys that have been doing this longer than us, that have seen it. And how did they learn it? So them passing off the knowledge to us to help us out. And, it just, I don't know, it creates a community for us, which I think is awesome. I think networking is a huge part of being a technician or a drivability technician, or even a mobile diagnostician. I think that's a huge part of if you're looking at doing this, get yourself a network, find some guys, reach out and just, see if you can find some guys that are willing to take some time away from their day to maybe walk you through some things. I had to call Ben Jameson the other day because I don't use the consult R2R that much. I've only used it a handful of times. I want to change that. I'm saving up for the factory pass through and stuff, but I just don't do it enough. And if I just would have read the directions, it would have been different. But him on the other line, walking me through it. Okay, cool, man. Because I hate Nissan anyway. Like, I get scared just because, before you program anything, it sounds like you're ready to launch a missile. Make sure there's no cell phones with like 3 miles. Make sure you got the yellow tape around the vehicle and cones up, and there's no radio waves, and it's out in the middle of BFE. And oh man, I'm like, this is. I just haven't done enough of them to be confident in them. It's not like doing a GM or a Chrysler where it's like, oh, okay, you just hit replace and reprogram. You just do this. It's super easy, but it's those little nuances, and just getting into doing Volkswagens and BMWs and stuff on programming. So now it's learning those, because that comes with its other set of challenges and stuff. But just know that you have guys like Matthew Skunkrich out there that. I know he gets a bad rap, but man, he's helped me out so many times that he'll yell at me. I don't care. Give me crap. I get it. Read service information, jackass. Like, I get that, Matt. Just what's going on? Okay, all right. Now that he yelled at you, then just tell me what am I doing wrong? But it's having those guys that have done it, that are willing to take time to help you along, and that's what it's all about. And that's why I'm sure you do this. And YouTube, as far as for myself, I try to give back where I can, and make it easier for all of us going to the future. So that's the long of the short.
Yeah. The struggling through that stuff, like all you're talking about with the tough cars, and you don't always realize it when you're in the middle of it. You're sweating and you're frustrated, and you're going back to the same car so many times, and it's just kicking your butt. But once you actually do get to the other side, then yeah, it's satisfying to fix the problem. What I didn't always make the connection with was the next time, and maybe it's 6 months to a year later, the next time you're in a similar situation, that stuff is just like that. Like, it's popping up in your brain because you ingrained it into your memories by struggling through it. And it helps you and your knowledge so much by doing that. So it's almost like training, right? Like really hard, stupid training, but it's so effective, right? And so now you have that going forward to make other jobs easier. And like you were saying, you get connections with people who've been getting their butts kicked for many, many years. They have lots of that maybe they'll help you out with. They got their butt kicked. Well, now it's just like that for them, and they can help you through it. So yeah, if you can go out, anybody, find a network, find a group of people, where however it is, Facebook or however you connect, do it. Maybe you're an introvert like me, and it's not the easiest thing in the world, but boy, is it worth it and beneficial to
it is.
Make some friends out there that are doing this stuff.
Yeah. No, and that's just it. I mean, just like your podcast and listening to it and stuff, and like, I think it was your last podcast, you talked about it several times, but splitting the network and stuff, things that you're just like, duh. But and to go back to what you're saying, I've learned so much off the cars that I just struggled with. Those are my biggest learning experiences that I will never forget. I know every single car that has kicked my butt, but I have learned from every single one of those. So much. Different diagnostic processes to a different approach that, yes, when I get the next one, it's a no-brainer. I know how I'm attacking this vehicle. It's kind of like your first time getting a network communication issue. It's like, you don't know where to begin. It's overwhelming,
Right.
Unless there's 3 modules on the car and there's 30 something, you're like, huh? I don't get it, but it's just taking the time, understanding it, wiring diagrams and everything else that, it's after you do the first one, man, now, like I said, I love network issues, man. You can You can see it on the scope. You just have to make sure you're tied in. And gosh, man, it's are they still challenging? Yeah, but they're not going anywhere, and it's really good practice as these cars get more and more complex with more and more networks. Staying on top of that is a good thing. So I like when shops call me for, hey, we got a no communication, or we got, this car's acting funny. And if it's a bus issue, man, I love those issues because, man, I love capturing the waveforms. I love watching the waveforms change when you disconnect modules or you split networks or whatever. It's like, oh, this is cool, man. This is not stuff that they're teaching you in the flow charts,
right.
They're not they're not telling you, hey, grab the lab scope, look for 2.5 to 3.5 and 2.5 to 1.5. And these are your data packets and this is what it should look like. Nope. None of that. They're like, check powers and grounds. Well, what if that module's a pain in the butt to get to, why not check the network first? And that's going to tell us a lot, so training, is huge. It's awesome to hear you're going to ASTE. So I'm going to be out there too. So we'll have to meet up or whatever, at least have a beer or something together. So.
Oh, definitely. Are you doing Super Saturday too?
No, I really wanted to. I really had to. I pretty much came down to like flipping a quarter if I was going to Super Saturday or ASTE. And since I've done Super Saturday and I have not done ASTE, I wanted to give them a shot. I just wish they weren't. If they were 3 months apart from each other, I'd be going to both.
Yeah.
But being right at a month, I just can't. Now, are you going to both or?
I'm only signed up for ASTE, and I was in the same boat. I was considering Super Saturday, but that's right at the beginning of school for me, so it might be tough to pull both of them off. I don't know. Plus, I kind of want to go to Vision next year, and we got to save up for that because that's not cheap.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to hit Vision this next year. For sure. I did the online this last year and I didn't participate in anything. I didn't network with anybody. I didn't even watch the classes live. It was all, early in the morning and stuff like the replays. So my Vision experience for my first experience was not, I was like, it is what it is. There's so much more to the
they did the best they
training.
could.
Oh yeah. They did
the best they could with it, but you're limited with the online stuff. It's just not the same feel. So I'm excited for some more in-person training, no doubt.
I missed it.
All right, everybody. That's going to do it for today's episode. I want to thank Cody again for spending the time with me here. Enjoyed that conversation with him quite a bit. I also want to say thank you to everyone that's listening to the show and for everyone that has reached out to me about the show. Really appreciate everyone out there that's taking the time to listen, and I hope that I'm providing some useful information for anybody out there in the automotive world. But with that all being said, let's all get out there, start fixing the world one car at a time.